My guest is Bob Elliott, CEO, CIO of Unlimited. Bob, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I mean, we're breathless with record highs, more than 50 record highs this year on the S&P 500. There is this sense of euphoria, animal spirits. Calibrate your exuberance right now.
Well, a lot of folks are worried because, prices keep hitting highs. As you noted, valuations are relatively elevated from any perspective. The issue is the valuations really only matter when you start to get enough central bank tightening to roll over the cycle. And we're getting exactly the opposite. In fact, what we're getting right now is a perfect combination of pretty good growth conditions and central bank easing. In the U.S. in particular, where growth is 2 to 3%. And the Fed keeps cutting. But really, globally, we're seeing the same type of conditions play out, where global growth is pretty stable at 3%. Inflation continues to be a little bit elevated, and yet central banks have already delivered 100 basis points of cuts and are plan to cut another 100 basis points in 25.
And here's what you say. The Fed will keep cutting, and Powell will cherry pick. I love this. He will cherry pick some other data to prove that monetary policy is very restrictive. I mean, is it restrictive? Given market exuberance, one would say policy is not restrictive. Given the math, you would say it is restrictive.
Well, there's something like 500 academics sitting at the Fed running models and saying that Fed policy is very restrictive, not looking at the fact that asset prices are hitting all-time highs, that spreads are at all-time lows, that the economy is running at 2 to 3%. The unemployment rate is pretty low by any reasonable measure. And the reality is Fed policy restrictive or not? It's not a theoretical question. It's not a model question. It's an empirical question. And the empirics are very clear. Growth is pretty good. Inflation is still elevated. And yet the Fed Chairman Powell will go up there on the stage, next week, and he'll say, hey, look, very restrictive policy. We need to bring rates down.